Hello, welcome to the AirOps Growth Leader Series. I'm really excited that everyone is joining us today. We've got a really important topic to chat about AI and the bottom funnel. So I have some very esteemed guests that are here with me, but first we have a tradition here. If this is your first time here, if you could put a star in the chat. So star equals first time here. And then a rocket ship equals more than one time. So let's see those come in. And you can also drop in where you are from. Vivian, Ty, Lache, have you ever been to an AirOps webinar before? I'm putting you on the spot a bit here, or attended, I should say.
Yeah, I've attended a few now.
Okay, awesome. Awesome.
I've definitely watched on YouTube on demand, if that counts.
Yes, that is a perfect plug. Thank you, Ty. Everyone check out our past videos on YouTube. Really appreciate it. Lots of stars. Welcome, Richard, Liza. Thank you. LA. Okay, we see some great names coming through. India. Wow. All right. So we are going to be talking about the bottom funnel. But first, I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves. Ty, why don't you kick us off? Just tell us a little bit about Animalz and kind of your background in content marketing and SEO.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Josh, for having us. Thanks, everybody, for attending. I'm Ty Magnin. I'm the CEO at Animalz. Animalz, if you don't know us, is a content marketing and SEO, now AEO, GEO agency that really is kind of obsessed with thought leadership and quality at the center of everything that we do. We work with a lot of B2B SaaS brands, many of which you've heard of. And my start in content goes pretty far back. But I've like led marketing teams in at various different seed stage startup companies through A's and B's. Also ran a large content and web team at a Series B through IPO at a company called UiPath. And bringing a lot of that learning to Animalz that's kind of been around 10 years and is continuing to reinvent itself.
Awesome. Thank you. And Vivian, SEO lead at Webflow. Want to give a little background on yourself?
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited to chat with everyone here. I'm Vivian. I've been in the SEO space for over 10 years. Was previously at Shutterfly and Rakuten, and now I lead SEO and AEO here at Webflow. And for those who don't know, Webflow is a website experience platform that really empowers teams of marketers, designers, developers to visually build, manage, and optimize their websites. And I'm excited to talk about, how we are evolving our SEO and AI search strategy today.
Yeah, super glad you're here. And then Lashay, I love hearing from you. Just tell everyone what you're up to these days, Bofu.ai.
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Lashay and I run a consultancy that focuses on bottom of funnel content for B2B SaaS companies. Since I started consulting about 2.5 years ago, I've been very Bofu centered. I've been doing SEO maybe for about 10 plus years now. And then just with the recent shifts with AI and everything like that, I started to notice a correlation between bottom of funnel and how you show up in AI search. And from quite frankly, that point, I've been obsessed with trying to figure out what the correlation is and if it's repeatable and how to integrate it into systems and processes. I won't say I've got everything figured out, but I'm kind of on to something, a little something. So
There you go. Yeah,
yeah,
that's why we're here, is to
that's why
get
we're
into
here.
all of that. Perfect. So you were in the
Yeah.
right place. Let's set it up a little bit. So first, we're going to be talking about some of those changes that Lashay mentioned. And then each panelist will kind of dive in a little bit on things that they're thinking about, things that they're building, things their teams have built. And then we will have actually a wrap up first and then a Q&A. So drop your questions in the chat if you have any questions for these esteemed guests. Um, but first, also wanted to chat a little bit about AirOps. If you are ready to thrive in AI search, we have some exclusive content refresh packages. Just email us at growth@airops.com. That's the website, airops.com. Proudly run on Webflow, actually. And with the subject line, webinar series. And then we will show you some workflows that you can use for your brand. Get access to our new AirOps prioritization LLM dashboard, and then a strategy to refresh your content like Webflow, Lightspeed, and others. So growth@airops.com. Let me drop that in the chat. And then we will, or you could use the QR code right there. So let's kick it off. Setting the stage a bit. We all know that AI search is rewriting the rules of discovery. We're seeing a lot of changes. This graph is actually from something that Kevin Indig put together to where he is seeing ChatGPT traffic maybe one day kind of cross over in Google. So we're seeing, at least on my end, a lot of shifts from tofu, top of funnel to bottom funnel, middle funnel. What are you guys seeing on your end? Lashay, why don't you go ahead and start us off on maybe some of what you've seen from your clients?
I'm seeing a lot of the same, right? So I won't say some people will go to the far end of the spectrum and say like top of funnel content is irrelevant. We've got to stop doing it. I don't think it's that drastic. I think top of funnel content still definitely holds its place and it has a specific goal and objective. But in terms of like the type of content that LLMs surface, so at least from what I'm noticing, some of my observation is that AI is kind of eating top of funnel content in a way. And what I mean by that is if I go to an LLM and I type in what is project management, the LLM can tell me what is project management without having to cite an external reference.
Right.
Versus if I go to an LLM and say, what's the best project management software for an enterprise organization? It's not going to be able to it's not going to be able to give me an answer without citing something external. So, I mean, at least for me, like that's what I'm finding, and I'm finding more and more of that. Now, with my clients, do we get top of funnel content or traffic from GPT and Perplexity? Yeah, we do. Have I figured out exactly how? No. But that's my observation, at least looking across different client accounts. Like that's something around the range of what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Ty, what are you seeing on your end?
think it's a lot of what Lache said. I mean, top of the funnel content's a little more, especially like information-based content, such as I forget the query you just gave. Like it's just more risky now, is how I put it. And it seems really clear that the way that people are interacting with GPT and similar tools is often in a very like sales-oriented manner. So, they're exploring competitive comparisons, right? They're looking at feature details. And so therefore that focus on the bottom of the funnel as it pertains specifically to LLM optimization, I don't think it's as important for Google's AI overviews, you know,
Mm.
uh, but it does bias us towards the bottom of the funnel for sure.
Hmm. Vivian, I know you've seen some interesting results from Webflow that we'll get into in a little bit, but yeah,
Mhm.
what are you seeing overall?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing the same as both Ty and Lishay mentioned. For us, like um, top of funnel is getting eaten a lot by, all of these AI answer engines. But I still think that there is like a time and place for top of funnel. Really depending on like your brand and category. For example, like if you're in a completely new category, top of funnel might still be an important play for you. And it's really targeting like the unaware. And I still believe that, you need top of funnel content to kind of establish yourself as like a topical authority. And for Webflow, we've, have a lot of top of funnel content that has established us as an authority in like the web design and developer space. But I think that now you don't really want to overinvest in top of funnel. It's really around like mid funnel and bottom of funnel content because that is where, LLMs are referencing your content and like you're building those brand signals.
Yeah, I like that point about top of funnel because there is still like a brand awareness play that you're going to have to do. And as the LLMs update their training data and all of that, they still need to include those like players because one day there will be like a
Mhm.
different CRM, a different project management software than like what's currently out there that you'll have to like account for and that they will have to
Mhm.
account for. Um, let's talk a little bit about actually putting AI in practice as far as like workflows go and kind of how we're updating and using our content to kind of meet the current moment. One thing that we found on our end from AirOps research is that faster industries demand faster like content refresh and optimization cycles. So one thing that I think a lot of content marketers, a lot of SEO teams are wrestling with is just like we have all these tools in front of us. AI can do all of these things. We can do it fast. Does that mean that we should do it fast? Does that mean we should do it quickly? So how are you thinking currently about balancing speed versus like quality, depth, and trust?
Well, I can
Go
go.
ahead, Vivian, if you'd
I
like. Yeah.
think that, like we have to make this call constantly. And I've learned that, it's not really an either or. I think it's about mapping out the parts of your processes that actually need real human judgment versus the parts that are just slowing you down. So, for example, I think speed wins when you're doing like repeatable structured tasks, like creating like formatting or basic research or competitive research or drafting outlines. But I think that, you really need to lean into depth and trust when you're, establishing those authority signals, or, you're working on content that's really high stakes and like requires subject matter expertise that AI simply doesn't have.
Yeah, for sure.
I would add, like, I think the mistake that's kind of easy to fall into or want to go explore is, okay, with AI now, we can do the speed thing a lot easier than we once could. And so, like, it's so tempting to just jump on the gas pedal, right? And like crank out a bunch of whatever it is. But really, that can then erode your authority, your trust. And I'm sure Lache feels this, right? As someone that focuses bottom of the funnel. And I just wouldn't want to make that trade-off, right? So I think Vivian like said it perfectly. It's like, where are you gonna really hit the gas pedal? And it is those repeatable kind of like low stakes things versus like, where do you need to be critical and build trust and make sure you're high on the quality bar?
Yeah, and Todd, to your point, I feel like you're spot on. And then the funny thing is, sometimes it is difficult for people to choose between the two, because if we think about what an in-house marketing team looks like nowadays, it's like probably like 1 to 4 people. They're being asked to do more with less. They're like pe executive leadership that doesn't really understand how important getting this stuff right is, will say things like, oh, well, can't we just use AI to do it? And the answer is like, yes and no. With some things, it's like, and Vivian, to your point, where you're like, things that require subject matter expertise, and it's just some things AI cannot do as of right now. I don't think it's meant to do everything. It's meant to fill in gaps in your workflow to make what you do more efficient. But can it replace the entire process? I don't think that should be the case, especially if we're talking about for bottom of funnel type of content. Like, people
Right.
attempt to try to get away with it with top of funnel, because it's like, if the topic is what is project management, I mean, there's only so many ways you can explain what project management is. Do I think you should ingrain your own POV in top of funnel? Absolutely. I think the moment somebody touches your brand, they should understand what your POV on the status quo is, but that's a whole nother webinar. But for what we're doing and for the use case that we're talking about today, for sure, I wouldn't, there's just, AI cannot do everything and it should not do everything. But again, to Vivian's point, if you have processes that are very repetitive, maybe a little bit mundane, then you can get the AI to come in and fill in those gaps in the workflow to be able to get an output quicker. Does it mean you should publish that output? No, it still needs to go through rounds of editing and iteration and prompting and things like that. But for sure, I think it's an and type of thing, right? It's not if or, but it's and. Both can be done together. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes some thinking for sure to understand which parts of the process that you can automate and hasten and make it go faster versus what you really need to spend a lot of time on. I like to say that like different posts have different jobs. And so like some type of content can use a little bit more AI with, some other ones you have some different processes with. And I know Ty has a really great chart on that here in a little bit, but it really is kind of using your brain here to like decide and kind of make some of those decisions. We'll get to that question later. Thank you around getting picked up in citations. We will get to that in a bit, but we are going to kick things off. Each panelist is going to share a little bit of what they are working on. So Lashay is going to go first, talking about the bottom funnel and where you can find some of the revenue. So I really love this quote from Lache. I think I got this from one of your LinkedIn posts. Content is no longer king, context is. Bofu is a key pillar to surfacing an AI search. She has built her entire brand around it. So she is going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So thank you to whoever that was that put the link in the chat. Maria, I believe. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what I'm noticing from AI search is that first of all, where you get your information is very, very important. I've been preaching this for 2 years now. I'm like, the best information that you have sits internally within your company, right? So it's on the sales team, it's on the customer success team, it's on the product team. And AI is only going to be as good as the context that you're feeding it. So if you're feeding it internal company documentation, it learns more about the company. It understands the nuances. If you are a horizontal company with multiple product lines and ICPs and industries, it'll start to ingest all of that information. And then once it does ingest that information, that's when you prompt it from there, right? So like if you have all your internal docs and then you start to prompt AI. So what I like to do is I like to prompt things out like pains and features and benefits and capabilities. I have a very modular process with how I do bottom of funnel. Oh, I think Josh dropped out.
I can screen share for you. You want me to take that?
That would be amazing. Thank you, Ty.
Yeah.
Saving the day.
Yeah, easy. All right, you're here.
Thank you. Okay. So essentially, I'm prompting things like pains and features and benefits and capabilities out of this because how I think about it is when somebody goes to an LLM and searches for these things, LLM searches tend to be more contextual, meaning that it's conversational. If we think about traditional Google, like how somebody would search in there, it's like best project management software, and that's the search. But with LLM, it's like, I'm the project marketing manager at an enterprise organization and I need help with X, Y, and Z, right? It's more contextual. So because of that, that just means our content has to get more deep and specific with how we're writing it and who we're addressing. So I kind of look at it like a mirror. How closely can I mirror with my content to how somebody is searching in an LLM? And I find the closer we can get to that, the higher the chance you will show up. Do you have to get it spot on? Absolutely not. Like, as long as you are topically related to the pain point that the target prospect is like dealing with, and you can articulate that properly in the article, 9 times out of 10, at least from what I found across my client accounts, you will show up for that. So that's like the general consensus around like what you kind of need to do to optimize. And again, I could talk about schema markup and all the technical stuff, but it's like to me, that's not as difficult to do as this. So many teams don't have internal alignment. Like this is the hard thing. And I guess essentially you could say this is like, I don't want to say it like that, but maybe it's like the new on-page thing for like AEO and AI search and stuff like that. Like this is how you optimize to show up from an on-page perspective. And I know Josh kind of said we would talk about citations too. That's kind of like the latter half of it, but this is what I'm finding is how you optimize for that. And
Perfect. Thank you guys.
yeah, no problem. Ty saved the day. But and again, like I have an example here from a company I was working with, Teal, and the bottom of funnel articles that we were working on for them were again very contextual, included the pain points. Not only that, but then it included capabilities that match to the pain points that are being, talked about, right? So we get very granular. It's everything is like interconnected purposely. And again, and I don't have a couple screenshots up here I could show you, just reach out to me. But one of the terms that I searched for them in Perplexity, mind you, longer search term, it's not like best resume builder. It's like more aligned with what somebody would be searching if they were to go into Perplexity and do a search. And again, I've ran the same search in GPT, not the same exact search, but like similar. And again, to that point is like AI understanding synonymous search, again, meaning the person does not have to exactly type in the phrase verbatim in order for you to show up. So again, if I went into GPT and typed something along the lines of, I'm having trouble managing multiple resumes and I don't know what to do and blah, blah, blah. A lot of times Teal will come up for that again, because they are optimized for it. And we did the bottom of funnel content all around that. So just some results for them, like bottom of funnel content was directly attributable to the pipeline that was being driven. Mind you, it's a high growth product led company. They had tons of different content, but bottom of funnel made up a significant portion. I can't remember the percentages. And the just on one of the pieces, they went from a 5% conversion rate to 30% on one bottom of funnel article, mind you. And this is no shade. I'm not trying to but an agency had did the article before that. But I think the problem with that is they don't get deep enough with the features, with the capabilities. And that was okay before. You could still rank in Google, kind of sliding like that. But the way it's set up now, like LLMs are forcing us to do what we should have been doing all along and put the customer first. That's what really, to condense it, this is really what this is all about. You can have structure in between that, to Vivian's point of having structures and things like that, but it's like put customer information within those structures. And that's how I'm finding the way to best optimize for that.
That's perfect. And I think you have a couple of workflows that you were going to share as well.
Yes. So I have a competitor workflow that I would love to share. So, and you're all able to see this, right? Okay. So a lot of the workflows that I have, again, there was a front-facing piece to this. So a lot of the workflows I have in the back end are super complicated. I'm like, let me just redo one for the sake of this. But this competitor workflow is very simple, right? So you put in a target domain. This would be the domain of one of your competitors. Ideally, a direct competitor, meaning they sit in the same category. You have the same feature set. You guys serve the same target audience. So you'd put the domain in here and then you would run it. So what this does is it'll run through the internal knowledge base first. Because again, if you have any internal documentation around who your competitors are, what they do and who they serve, this is where this would come out at, right? So it searches the internal knowledge base. If it doesn't find anything there, it will start searching externally through Perplexity. And then just to kind of show you like what the steps look like, you are an elite competitive intelligence analysis with 15 plus years of product research. And it just goes through the whole thing. And there's an entire prompt in here that just goes through everything from like market gaps to what are their pain points or what our audiences or their prospects saying negatively about them. This is great information to give to the product team as well to be able to like fill those gaps. And then when we come down further, here's just an output from Perplexity that kind of is just like an executive summary of what we're looking for in terms of like market research and things like that. And again, I don't like the way Perplexity does its output. Like I like the way Claude does its output. So what I do is once the output is done from Perplexity, I'll take it and then organize it into Claude and then create like a complete competitor assessment. So it has like an executive summary, it talks about it, company profile, like a ton of different information, features laid out, just a ton of stuff. And then from here, I have that to continuously pull from, right? So when I start doing the bottom of funnel articles, the AI has context on not just my company, but my competitors' companies as well.
Right.
So that's one of the things that, you know, I guess a simple flow, again, the rest of them are like a little bit complicated, but that's a simple one you can grab. I can create a duplicate of this to share it with everybody. But I find this to be super helpful when it comes to competitor research, for sure.
Yeah, I like that analysis that you have that's on the screen right there. I mean, it's even if you don't create, if you're not using AI to necessarily create content, but it just gives you so much background that you can use this workflow repeatedly just to do your research on.
Yeah.
We had somebody ask a question specifically. Do you know if visitors that converted on that post you shared, did they convert from LLMs? I think Shannon was asking that.
That's a great question. So some of them, yes. And typically the way I see that is there's a setup you can do within HubSpot. Don't ask me how to do it. There's a setup you can do within HubSpot that will let you see the source of where that lead came from. And what I'm starting to see more and more of is that the source equals GPT. So, you know, again, high product-led growth company, most of their signups were coming from Google. some coming from GPT as well. They even did a monster article on like AI resume builders, and that kind of took off as well. So no, totally. It's not a significant portion coming from GPT yet across client accounts, but it's slowly upticking over time. Yeah.
Yeah. And Vivian will have some on that as well. I will jump back in here. Ty, if you want to hit your next section here. Thank you, Lashay, for that. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was great. Took a lot of notes. Cool. So at Animalz, again, content agency, we help teams scale their high intent content. And I think we've always done that, right? It's been 10 years now. But the thing that's really changed is now we have AI as a tool to help us scale. So if you flip to the next one,
Great quote.
thank you, thank you. Well, let me go back to that if you would. So
Okay.
our perspective is like, and it's kind of always been this way, but it's especially important now, is that the only thing worth publishing on the internet is something net new, something that's going to add to the conversation that you are participating in. We call that thought leadership. You can call it information gain. It could include original research, etc. But AI is so good at regurgitating, summarizing content that's already out there on the internet. So like you got to add something new. And this is at the core of a lot of the things that we do in our approach entirely when using AI. So over the last, half a decade now, we've run a lot of different experiments. This was even before I was in Animalz to produce high intent content with the help of AI. It started back when I was an early writer.com customer at UiPath. We used the tool there to help hundreds of content contributors at the company and third-party agencies like Animalz produce content that was on brand. So that was like it helped us govern the voice and the tone, and it also helped us with terminology and consistency there. Pretty useful early use of AI. From there, I actually asked Animalz when I was at a different company to produce content with AI. So this was like, I think it was after the, GPT-3 moment. I got with Ryan Law and asked him to like basically produce a blog post a day with the help of Jasper, Copy AI. We did a bake off, used a bunch of different ones and had some success there too. The challenge was we kind of underestimated how much manual work was done to produce quality content, even with those tools. So Animalz ended up getting the pricing wrong and thinking that like they could do it for a lot less, when in actuality, there was still a whole lot of editing and editorial senses that went into this thing. So, for them, it didn't work out great long term as they started to scale that offering. And then I actually was so inspired, I started a small AI content agency in 2023 that was doing similar work. So using LLMs to produce content for a lot less. And on our side, we failed to produce effective case studies. We were leaning pretty heavily on AI, and our pricing was okay, but like the quality of content just didn't lend itself to ranking effectively in search or performing well for other channels. And therefore, we just like couldn't develop big customer wins that helped us have that tailwind that's so important. So those are examples of like mostly successful AI experiments. And then there are definitely some like failed ones along the way. We've all done the one-shotting, like a sophisticated prompt into a blog post that like just doesn't quite, build a relationship with your audience that you're seeking to build. We've tried building workflows that take us all the way through draft production, yes, in AirOps. And there are elements of that we thought were really good, but it also created like the need for so much manual editorial kind of intervention that we wouldn't call that a complete failure, but like the drafting part just didn't work well for us. And then we're seeing the same thing, or we have seen the same thing around last year where writers were trying to use a lot of AI in their content production for our customers. And it just created a lot of rounds of revisions, because it wasn't quite there. So where did all of this, these wins, these trials help us land? Essentially, it's that AI has been great for a lot of the processes around creating content. So, maybe it's writing a brief or doing research or coming up with ideas. It's also around, that governance piece, right? Of like editorial workflows for terminology, internal linking, great use case. But for drafting content, it's pretty limited for us, even with a good brief. So we're still doing that by hand. It's not what I would have predicted back in 2023 in terms of how we'd be using it, but it's the reality of just where we find ourselves at Animalz today. And so we've been working towards this idea of Animalz intelligence, sort of AI. It's kind of like, a cheeky version of like how we use AI.
Yeah.
And there are three big components. The first is having detailed research libraries or knowledge bases. I think I spelled libraries wrong. No, I didn't. Anyhow, we had really detailed, we put a ton of content into two different kinds of like knowledge bases. One is for customers with a bunch of their IP. So we will put what they have that already exists in there, and then we'll try and produce more of it via interviews, via original research over time that we can extract into different content assets so that everything we publish has that element of thought leadership. We also have like 10 years of materials on editorial best practices, on having, what quality means, playbooks and things like this that we are experimenting with, also using as a knowledge space to inform our workflows. So that's component one. The next one, and I'll demo a couple of these in a moment, is this idea of an AI usage spectrum. We've kind of alluded to it today, but really like AI usage isn't black or white, right? Like you can use more of it in some areas, as Vivian mentioned, that are highly repeatable. I think that those examples are around like specifically content refreshes, especially micro refreshes of like adding an FAQ or changing some of the H2s to better align with what's in an AI overview. Also like highly derivative content for repurposing. Blog post to LinkedIn, probably a decent use case. Webinar to blog posts. I'm sure, Josh, you'll use that after we're through. Those are the ones that like you can rely on a lot of AI for. And then for the human-led stuff, we're still just doing this in large part by hand. I mean, a research report, if you're getting third-party research, like, oh man, I just love using, deep research and similar tools for that. But still something that has to be a little more handcrafted. I kind of put SEO and AEO in the middle there. And then, there's varying, there's even like pieces within an SEO workflow, right? That like is more AI driven versus more human led. But I do think seeing it in a spectrum is a really helpful thing.
I think every company should probably map this out themselves. I don't know, Vivian, if you've thought about this like formally, but this makes a lot of sense to me about just kind of like, hey, as a company, as a content team, where are we going to stand? So I think this is really helpful, Ty, to think of it as a spectrum like this.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. And then the last bit here is just AI training and governance, right? So AI adoption is really hard, especially in a larger team. And we find it to be hard, especially because we have like, clients with diverse needs. So we're deliberately making sure that best practices are trickling down, when to use it, when not to use it. Even we get a lot of our best ideas from, of course, the team that's on the front lines, helping clients with their organic growth. And so there's a lot of those kind of quality systems that we are building upon, revising, building that new in order to help us continue to keep a high quality bar as we layer in more and more AI usage.
Yeah, love that. We recently posted a post about the modern content engineering org about having like a context librarian, having like governance, having all these different roles that a larger organization especially might need to like help make decisions about how you're going to train, how you're going to use it, especially as you scale. So love this framework, love the manual editorial intervention. Having human in the loop is always super key. Um, you had a couple of workflows as well, Ty, right?
Yeah. Give me the keys. I'll do a demo.
Yeah, there we go.
Thanks. All right, I've got two for you guys. The first one is a LinkedIn thought leadership type workflow, right? So we help a lot of like founders produce content for their LinkedIn. And listen, I was not the architect of these, so I'm going to do my best to represent them. I think I get the big components of it, but don't ask me all the detailed questions, please. I can, introduce you to the person that's more responsible.
Sure.
So anyhow, this thing, as I understand it, can take up a bunch of different raw inputs. A transcript would be a common input. So, we do interviews, we pull those in here. And the first step is to extract ideas from that interview. Okay. Then we will rank those ideas based on some criteria to figure out which ones we think will perform best for this company based on their goals. A human then looks at the list of ideas ranked by the LLM and will choose those. That then produces basically like some formats, so like archetypes of posts that we will end up writing. It creates a brief, and it also includes the raw source, so like the quotes or that chunk of interview in this case, alongside of those, like, the brief template, so that the writer can like refer back to it, get the quote exactly right, use that source material when they're actually then editing. This spits out a brief, and then we do have, there's sort of the manual way of writing it, but we also are working on a draft example here. Which is kind of against what I'm saying, but I do think like we're going to keep pushing and try to do more and more of the process with AI. And I think LinkedIn, shorter form, I think we can get away with it and still meet our quality standards. So that's our LinkedIn workflow. And this here is an SEO or GEO workflow for going from a keyword to a brief. And this one works, of course, by first trying to understand the intent of a keyword. Then it's actually going to look at the brand's POV and narrative and try and figure out, okay, here's the search intent. Here's this kind of the article that are ranking now. What's the gap based on our POV that we can include in order to have that element of thought leadership, to contribute to the conversation, information gain, et cetera, that we can loop into this. And that is what we then turn into, like, that becomes the strategy of the piece in the next step. This then becomes a research brief that we then run through deep research that then does a couple things and starts to produce a brief, basically, as far as I understand it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can show a quick example of the output of this too, if folks find that helpful.
For sure.
Okay, I think it's this one here, which is, it's like more than a brief. There's like a bunch of source material from that research step and whatnot that a writer can then pull into a brief, really. So this is like almost like a pre-brief, as I understand it. And then elements that can also be pulled into an outline, such as, so like here are the stats that they can pull in, right? Such as like an FAQ section that might make sense for them to consider pulling through. So it's kind of like, it helps inform then a person to then like really shape it into a brief in our specific template that will then go on to the content producers that are going to write the piece.
So it gives them a good leg up to start. It gives them a lot of the research and the elements that have to be covered. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people forget about, is you can just like get that production cycle going a little bit faster, which then helps create more content frequently, and then keep that quality bar still really high.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing that. Again, if anyone's interested in seeing these workflows kind of live, feel free to email us at growth@airops.com and we can get you going. Vivian is now going to share what she's been working on at Webflow and what she's been seeing on the bottom funnel. She did a really great post. Everyone should check it out. I think Maria has it. She can drop it in the chat about their AEO strategy at Webflow and kind of what that's been looking like. So this quote is really good. It's structured for agents, optimized for humans. Vivian, why don't you tell us what you've been working on and take it away?
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about like our SEO strategy, how we're evolving it to an AI search strategy here at Webflow, and also how we're building more like signal-driven content workflows to optimize for these answer engines. So for Webflow, like the shift in really how users discover our brand and our content is really already driving meaningful results. We've seen up to 8% of our total new signups come directly from LLMs, and they are also converting at a higher rate than non-brand SEO. And so we're tracking it using a refer. And also, that's probably likely undercounted since, visitors will often go directly to the site from an LM, from ChatGPT, or do like a brand search. So we've also seen increases in direct and brand SEO traffic as well.
That's a good call out.
Yeah. When we think about like visibility and just driving revenue from AEO, like it's not just about like keyword driven content anymore. We're starting to think about it like as signals. So AI answers aren't random. They're really like a synthesis of your own content and like your established credibility, so earned signals across the web. And our focus has really been about balancing these two systems. So building quality structured content while also amplifying like our earned mentions across external sources. So our AEO strategy really centers around these two goals. So the first is to increase brand visibility through external sources. And this is really a cross-functional team effort. So we have teams across all of marketing just working to increase mentions and citations across authoritative publications, Reddit, YouTube, social communities, affiliates, and review sites. And these all become the earned signals that AI models are referencing. And then on the other side, we're also working to optimize our own content. So that's where I'm focused on. So own signals are really all of the assets that you can control. Like that's your website, your content, your schema, content structure, content freshness. And here, I'm really focused on more high intent topics, like what Ty mentioned, but that's also structured for agents. So we're structuring for agents, but then also optimizing for humans by providing value or information gain, like Ty mentioned, clarity, structure, and then originality. Next slide.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it comes to optimizing our owned content, we're also really leaning heavily into experimenting to see what actually works. And we're trying to add value, refresh and add relevancy and signals, and then structuring content to answer real user questions. So I like to think of it also as like in terms of a visit website intent. So we're looking at content that actually drives users to click through from an AI answer. And that can include templates, website examples. So those types of articles do really well for us, comparison pages and solution pages. And we've also started using AirOps to scale a lot of these processes, including like generating blog content from webinars, increasing our content velocity. We've actually increased our content refresh velocity by 5x. And I think what really works for us, especially when it comes to like building out AI workflows for AEO, is really using AI to create leverage where across some of our existing SEO and content processes. And one example I'll actually share is our automated FAQ workflow. So let me see if I can share my screen.
Yeah, we have some questions already about that from Liz and then somebody else in there too. They're very interested in how you automate your FAQs.
Yeah, hopefully I can answer some of those questions in this. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is an example of FAQs on our CMS page. So FAQs are not only impactful for SEO and users, but they're also really beneficial for LLMs because it helps them understand and recommend our brand, especially for more of like the mid to long tail queries related to like our product features. And the process here to scale these out can be really time consuming because we need to research what people are actually asking, write clear answers that match our brand voice, and then format everything properly for search and answer engines. So in AirOps, I actually built out this FAQ content and schema workflow to automate this process. And this is kind of how it works. So for any given landing page and target topic, the workflow starts by first scraping the page, and then it pulls in people also ask questions on Google. It gets related questions from keyword research, and then real user questions using the Perplexity to pull questions across social forums like Reddit and Quora. And there's also a manual input option here to add in like suggested questions. For example, if we see common questions come from like our sales calls or user interviews, it will prioritize those questions. And then in the content generation section, there's first a step to kind of analyze all of that existing, all of that research, and then check to see if we already have FAQs on the page. And then if we do have FAQs, there's a step here to kind of optimize them. And in this section, we first, generate the list of questions based on all of those previous research steps and, guidance on like our brand priorities and alignment. And then I have another section or step here to generate the answers. And I found that breaking up more of these complex tasks into multiple steps actually improves the outputs versus like including everything in one long prompt. Oh, and the critical part here is that it's not just generic content. Everything is grounded in like our internal documentation. Like to Lashay's point, we have, internal docs here that includes like our brand tone and voice, our messaging, product messaging guidelines, help documentation, the page content itself. And then in the grid, there's also a separate workflow to generate the proper schema markup, which we can then include in custom code on the page. And that just helps, both search engines and LLMs kind of understand the relationship between these entities and our brand.
I think something that's really interesting here is you have like your blog post, your landing page, and then you're creating FAQs from that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think,
so we're
yeah, I mean, I think that sounds so simple, but I think it's like a very easy thing to like overlook. So your FAQs are like are they actually pulling content from the landing page or from the blog post itself, or is it kind of like generating some new things?
Yeah, so it's pulling in all of the page content already, just to make sure, we're not duplicating answers that are already there. But we're
Okay.
also pulling in, because we have content across like our help docs, like support docs around like how to, do some of this stuff, and then content across blogs. So we make sure to like pull all of that in. And then there's a step to kind of reference all of that when it's generating answers. So these FAQs are very like on brand and product specific to our product, to like the CMS.
And then are you seeing any difference between like the LLMs picking up things, or even Google for that matter, picking up things from the FAQ versus like the page itself?
Yeah, we are. So so before launching, we made sure to validate all of the content with our product marketing team, and then just do like a final editorial review. And then once we launched on these core 6 of our core feature pages, we saw like a significant increase in citations. I'll stop sharing so you can go back to the deck.
Yeah, no, that's a really key point, I think, to remember is that like once these FAQs were added, then you started seeing more citations, right?
Yeah, we did. So we're tracking against like maybe 200 queries across like different topics. We saw over 330, new citations specifically to these pages, and they made up 57% of all total news citations to our domain. We also saw like a pretty significant lift in SEO impressions, so that just showed that Google AI overviews were also picking up these. And
Yeah.
I didn't have it here, but we also saw a lift in paid new customers as well from both LLMs and SEO versus the previous period.
And I think that's, as we kind of think about bottom funnel content here, like where were kind of those visitors coming from? Was it from bottom funnel content?
Yeah, so specifically to these feature pages itself from the FAQs.
Wow, that's a really good thing to think about as we think about bottom funnel content. Sometimes I just default to like a landing page or blog content, but like our feature pages are kind of by definition bottom funnel content because it shows somebody like very interested and focused on doing research and to finding out which product really is best for them.
Yeah.
That as a content marketer, like work with your product marketing team, work with your product team to like really help develop some of those pages because they're super key, I find.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to skip this. We had some questions. We are going to get to questions, but I am going to just save our time here because we had a lot come in. But I did want to mention AirOps. If you're very interested in some of these workflows and how you can get results, like Chime had a 3x increase in AI search citations. We talked about Webflow. Their case study is in the chat. We can drop that again. Also, Vivian did a really good piece on the Webflow blog about their AI AEO search strategy. Lightspeed has seen a 37% increase in conversions from using AirOps as well. Feel free to drop us a note. We do have a prioritization dashboard as well to see where you are in LLMs. So here's a Webflow, for example, and as an example, and their visibility, we can also show what actions you should take. So refresh content, create new content, and then you can measure and repeat this. So if you would like to see this, scan the QR code right there, email us at growth@airops.com. We'll set you up with some workflows similar to what you saw here today. All these workflows that you saw were like, people worked very hard on them, including Vivian, Lache, and Ty mentioned he had somebody on his team architecting it. So there are some out of the box you can use, but then customization is really where you get the full value out of. So feel free to email us at growth@airops.com to get started on that. Now Q&A, we have a ton of questions. I'm going to pull up the chat once again. Let me make sure I have it. Yes. One question that has come in quite frequently is just, how are you like putting bottom funnel content on your roadmap? Do you kind of have like, I guess, what's your process for even content creation? Mark asked, how do you get all of your insights on a roadmap? How are you prioritizing bottom funnel content? Where is this kind of like in your mix? How are you recommending your kind of mix of types of content?
It's a good question. I typically start, with clients with a channel first, right? So if we're talking about AEO, then it's pretty easy to like set up some prompts in a tool like AirOps. And then it'll probably lead you towards like, from what I found, competitive comparison pages, as well as like high intent tool listicle type posts, the best CMSs for small and medium businesses, right? Webflow is number one. And so I think it depends on what channel you're trying to distribute through. Basically, sales led is going to be different than like if it's this PLG motion, if it's search, if it's email, if it's an ad, like you name it. Because I think that's the place to start that's going to shape the kind of content that you're producing.
Lache, what do you recommend as like a good mix for clients to think about?
I think it depends on the company's goals, right? So if the goal is to drive more high level brand awareness, to Vivian's point before, where she's like, top of funnel does still fit into a specific narrative, and it does, right? So if the goal is to drive, if you are a new category, because everybody thinks they're a new category, but if like you're a new category and you want to get people to like understand who you are and your POV and things like that, yeah, of course, start top of funnel. But if you're like, okay, we need inbound leads yesterday, of course, I'm going to say that's when you start to go toward the bottom of the funnel. But, I just think it depends on the goals of the company. Is there cross-functional communication within the company? Can somebody on marketing talk to somebody in executive leadership or somebody from the sales team and say, hey, so this quarter, we want to focus on this particular segment. They're already well aware of who we are, things like that. We just need more pipeline from this particular segment. Versus if they're like, okay, we want to target this specific segment next quarter, but this is a new market we're breaking into, right? This is like outside of like our beachhead segment, like we're trying to break into an entirely new market. Maybe you want to start top of funnel for that specific however it's broken out, industry, product, if you have multiple products. So it's highly dependent on company goals. But again, I think the bigger picture is like brand awareness, POV, stuff of that, top of funnel, inbound leads, bottom of funnel. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that framework for thinking through it. One question that I had that I think maybe should have been obvious and asked at the beginning, that's on me. It's just like what types of content are like bottom funnel that we're seeing like perform well? So we've mentioned like feature pages, we've mentioned comparisons. Like what kind of things are you suggesting your clients, or in Vivian's case, what kind of things are you working on to really think of bottom funnel content?
Yeah, I think for us, it really depends on like the type of audience and persona that we're targeting to Lachey's point. So it's really like a spectrum. Like for us, some of the bottom funnel content we see working well are like templates, competitor comparison pages, some more like of the kind of bottom of funnel type of blog posts. So we're really focusing more on those.
Uh, yeah, typically. So like when I think of bottom of funnel, anything that's indicative of something that's high intent. So like if we want to talk about blog posts, like best versus an alternative kind of on the blog post side, on the non-blog post side, it is like product pages and solution pages and things like that. Anything that is, representative of somebody being toward the end of their journey, and taking that leap over and becoming like an actual, from reader to prospect. But yeah, typically that's how I like to break it out. Again, to Vivian's point, where it's like, the feature pages and the solution pages and use case pages or whatever you want to call them, like all of it, at least in my mind, is considered high intent bottom of funnel.
Yeah, just gonna add, we're writing an embarrassing amount of like tool listicle posts. Again, like the 10 best CMS editors for SMBs. It's like, and variations of that, because they just tend to be really working well in answer engines, especially.
Yeah. Are you seeing anything around like length or style or structure like affecting it? Because one thing I've been really curious about, and Vivian showed some landing pages with FAQs, but I'm just kind of thinking like, is it the end of the blog post where we just now have like a whole list of questions and then and the answer engines like just pick those up? Like, are we seeing anything around how you should structure your pages to maybe get picked up or even like conversion oriented?
I think the length doesn't matter as much as long as you are answering that search intent comprehensively, making sure answer all of the subtopics or sub questions around that topic. We are doing a little bit more experiments with like structuring, headers as questions, seeing if, breaking up content into easy to understand chunks works. Um, so we're doing a lot more experimentations around that.
Yeah, Tyler Lache, you have anything on that?
Yeah. But because I'm so focused on bottom of funnel and I don't really like touch, I'll do middle of funnel too, because that can be very product led as well. And it also shows up in LLMs. But because I'm not very like top of funnel focused, I tend to go deeper on the bottom of funnel spectrum where it's like, if you see typical bottom of funnel posts, they're like, okay, 10 best project management softwares, and they'll lightly cover features a little bit, then they'll move to the next product. Like I'm very like opposite of that. I'm like, okay, 10 best project management softwares, like here's feature number one, here's feature number two, here's a contextual example of how the feature works, here's a GIF to show how the feature works. Like very in depth that way. And I do find, and honestly, I can't lie and say like, oh, I did it because I was optimizing for LLMs. Like, no, this happened prior to all of the LLM hype, but now I think it's been a key lever in how you show up again. Because if you think about the nature of LLM searches being contextual and conversational, again, it's not just best project management software. It's I'm a project manager at an enterprise organization and I need help with A, B, and C, right? So it's like if your content answers that specifically, and again, it doesn't have to be verbatim, but as long as it topically answers that, and you give a good case about why you're the best solution for it, and other websites say you're the best solution for it, that's when I see you tend to start to show up. But again, I'm on the further end of the Bofu spectrum, so I'm very deep with how I do that. But I understand not everybody just covers Bofu. Sometimes they cover the whole funnel and they can't go as deep as they would like to. But at least that's what I'm finding is working. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good note there. Thank you. Let me just say next week we do have another webinar about digital PR and offsite. If you are interested in that topic, Vince from BusStream is going to join us. But then feel free to connect with any of our panelists here. They're all like super nice. Feel free to reach out to them. And yeah, we're all on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Really appreciate the time today, guys. It was a great talk.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
Thank you for
us.
having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send out a recap to everybody and then we will see you next time. Thanks so much.